Quit nagging me. I'm busy with work and exhausted. Why do I have to take care of my daughter even when I get home? Give me a break when I'm at home. Ever since his promotion, my husband has been coming home late and not taking care of our daughter at all. I keep enduring, thinking it's not good for our family to be torn apart right now, especially for our daughter's sake. Then one day, I found out my husband's infidelity. I was moving towards divorce, but when I thought about my daughter, I couldn't help but wonder if this was the right decision, and I couldn't prepare as I should have. But then, Mom, why did you cheat on Dad? My daughter came home from school, sobbing and slapping my cheek. Listening to my daughter's story, I told her the truth. Aubrey, this might be a complicated story for you, but what do you want to do? I can't forgive Dad either. I'm on your side, Mom. After hearing my daughter's feelings, I cut off my hesitation and finally decided to go through with the divorce. So begins a revenge drama between the two of us against my husband. I'm Karen, 43 years old, living in a single-family home with my husband, Chris, who is the same age and working in a company, and our daughter, Aubrey, who's in 7th grade. We bought this house just when our daughter entered middle school, and we said goodbye to our previous apartment living. The people in this neighborhood are all kind, and it's a very comfortable place to live. My daughter seems to have classmates around, and she's enjoying her life. At first glance, this life might seem smooth sailing, but I have one concern. It's my husband. Ever since his promotion, he's been coming home very late. Of course, I understand that getting a promotion means a higher position and busier schedule. But it's still too late. In the past, he's come home at 1 a.m. Honey, can't you come home earlier? Aubrey's been feeling lonely lately because she hasn't been able to talk to you. Disappointed with her father's tardiness, I resolved to tell him how our sensitive daughter was feeling, knowing this wasn't good for her. But, quit nagging me. I'm busy with work and exhausted. Why do I have to take care of my daughter even when I get home? Give me a break when I'm at home. He completely refused to accept it. I don't really care if he's cold or treats me roughly since I'm used to it, but it really made me angry when he seemed to find taking care of our daughter a nuisance. However, at that time, I thought my husband was truly busy, so I couldn't say anything more. Unaware of what he was actually doing. One day it happened. Have a good day. As usual, I sent my husband off to work. Even though we're not getting along well as a couple, I make sure to say at least good morning, have a good day, welcome back, good night. But my husband never replies. After seeing him off and returning to the living room, I found my husband's lunchbox on the table. He seemed to have forgotten to take it. Luckily, I wasn't scheduled for my part-time shift today, so after seeing Aubrey off to school, I decided to deliver it to my husband's company. Let's see, Chris's department is on. My husband's company isn't exactly a big corporation, but it's not a small one either. In simple terms, it's an above-average company, and the office is quite spacious. As I was checking the directory to find my husband's floor, Karen? What are you doing here? My husband, apparently just returning from a field visit, called out to me. Next to him was a woman a little younger than me. Probably in her 30s. Until my husband noticed me, the two of them seemed to be talking quite intimately. Are you Chris's wife? Nice to meet you. I'm Natalie. Natalie, the woman who introduced herself, spoke to me. In a way that got under my skin. Nice to meet you. I'm Karen, Chris's wife. Natalie, what's your relationship with my husband? Oh, come on, we're just work colleagues. Right, team leader? Yeah, that's right. I had a suspicious feeling about my husband's reaction, but I thought if I worried about it, I would lose, so I didn't say anything. I had to go home and do the housework, so I handed my husband his lunch and decided to go home right away. But I couldn't help but worry about the relationship between the two of them, and when I looked back a little later, the two seemed to be quite close to each other. I was frustrated and didn't know what to do, so I quickly left the scene and hurried home. Ever since I met Natalie, I couldn't help but worry about something. That is, the suspicion that my husband might be having an affair with Natalie. If my husband is indeed having an affair with Natalie, it would explain why he always comes home late, and I would be convinced by the close distance between the two that I saw recently. However, this is just a suspicion. There's no evidence. Besides, my daughter is still in middle school. When I think about Aubrey, I realize it's not good to make a big fuss about it. I decided to forget about it for now, in order to protect my current life. But it's late. That morning, my husband said he had a company party and went to work. But now it's 2 a.m. My husband hasn't come home yet. I went to bed before the date changed, but I couldn't sleep, so I killed time watching a drama I had recorded. Still, my husband didn't come home. As time went on, the suspicion that my husband and Natalie might be having an affair crossed my mind, and I gradually couldn't concentrate on the drama. At the moment I was going to call my husband to ask when he was coming home, I heard a noise from the entrance. It seemed my husband was finally home. I rushed to the entrance, and there was my drunk husband. "What are you thinking? What time do you think it is? And you're this drunk?" I got angry like that, but my husband kept saying incomprehensible things like my boss was going, drink, and stuff. It was pointless to get angry in this state, so I gave my husband some water and somehow pushed him into the bath. While my husband was in the bath, I began to tidy up his belongings. At that moment, a notification came in on my husband's smartphone. I usually wouldn't care, but I'd been suspecting my husband of cheating lately, so I couldn't help but peek at his phone. Then I saw, "Tonight was so much fun. Let's do it again." Of course, don't tell your wife. I felt a quiet anger and took a picture of the message with my phone. During my break at the supermarket where I work, I sighed heavily. Ever since I peeked at my husband's phone and became convinced that he was cheating, I'd been gathering evidence of the affair, but I hadn't been able to find anything concrete besides that message. The problem was that I was also working at the supermarket while taking care of the house and children, so I didn't have much time to investigate their relationship. Capturing decisive evidence, like a picture of the two together, seemed like an impossible dream. "Oh, Karen, is that you? What's the matter? Why are you sighing like that?" This lady is Ruby, a 61-year-old woman who works at the same supermarket. Ruby is kind and very caring. She's also my neighbor. "Ruby, good to see you. Actually, I decided to consult Ruby about my husband. She might have some good insights." After hearing everything, Ruby said, "That's definitely suspicious. I know people, Karen, who've had this kind of problem at your age. Would you like me to introduce you to a private investigator I know?" "What? But I have this image that private investigators and lawyers cost a fortune." "Don't worry. If it's through me, it'll be cheaper." Ruby told me to do it, and although it was somewhat pushy, I began a full-scale investigation into my husband's infidelity. From that point on, I was living life in the fast lane. On weekends, I met with a detective that Chris introduced me to at a coffee shop near the station, and from there, I reported my husband's movements to the detective every day while I was collecting evidence such as his message exchanges at home. According to the detective, indeed, my husband and Natalie were having an affair. He showed me several photographs as evidence, and there seemed to be no end to it, such as the two of them coming out of the office arm in arm, and going out for dinner together. Until then, I was unsure about getting a divorce because of my daughter, but after seeing those pictures, I decided to divorce and send the two of them to hell. Then one day. It's sudden, but I'm going on a business trip for a week starting tomorrow. "A whole week? Where are you going?" "You've never been on a business trip before." "It's in Nebraska." Tough break. I knew at that moment that my husband was not really going on a business trip. Because I saw in the messages between my husband and Natalie that they were planning a trip to Miami. I immediately reported to the detective that my husband seemed to be going on vacation under the guise of a business trip. The next day, my husband left the house early in the morning. My daughter went to school, and I was doing housework as usual, when the detective sent me pictures right away. They showed the two of them happily sightseeing together. I had never seen such a smile on my husband's face. And next to him, Natalie was smiling happily. All of it should have been for me, the one who should have received that smile, the one who should have been smiling happily next to that smile. I got angrier just thinking about it, and felt like crying. However, these photographs only fueled my desire for revenge. I quickly finished my housework and pulled out the paperwork to change the ownership of the house. With the evidence piling up, when my husband returns from his affair trip, I'm going to confront him with the evidence and kick him out of the house. As I was filling out the paperwork, I heard the front door open. My daughter was home. When I went to greet her at the entrance, she was standing there, looking down. "What's wrong? Did something happen at school?" when I spoke to my visibly upset daughter. She slapped my cheek. My daughter, finally looking up, was sobbing. Mom, why did you cheat? Wait, what are you talking about? I couldn't catch up with my daughter's sudden words and behavior. As I was confused, my daughter continued. My friend told me today. Mom, you met a man at the coffee shop near the station last weekend. There's even a picture. The picture my daughter showed me was undoubtedly of me and the detective. I've been trying so hard because I know you and Dad aren't getting along. But why? Why would you do this? Saying that, my daughter began to cry even more. It seems that my daughter was mistaken. Thinking that, I told her the truth. Aubrey, please calm down and listen. Your father is the one who's cheating. The man in the picture you showed me is the detective who's investigating your father's infidelity. Your father is doing something terrible that's not only hurting me but also you. He said he was on a business trip, but it's all lies. Saying that, I showed my daughter the evidence photos of my husband's infidelity. So that's what happened. I'm sorry for blaming you, Mom. It's okay. I'm sorry for letting you misunderstand. It might have been a complicated story for you, Aubrey. What do you want to do? I can't forgive Dad. He's making you sad, and he's neglecting me, right? I'm on your side. Saying that, my daughter agreed to help me. Of course, I took care of the legal procedures and claims for child support, but she helped me pack up my husband's belongings to throw him out. As we were busy preparing, the day my husband would return finally came. I'm home. Welcome back. The day has finally come. Today I'm gonna send both of them to hell. Man, I'm tired from the business trip. I don't usually go on them. He seems intent on maintaining that he was on a business trip. Even though it's all out in the open. Hey, honey. Can you sit down? I have something important to talk about. What? I'm tired from the trip. Can't it wait? Just sit down. My husband, sensing something unusual from me, obediently sat in the living room chair. How was the business trip to Miami? I told you just now. I'm tired. Wait, what did you just say? How was the business trip to Miami? That's what I'm talking about. How did you know I went to Miami? I only said I was going to Nebraska. So you admit you went to Miami? Yes. I went to Miami on a business trip. With Natalie, right? Why? How do you know that? I thrust a pile of evidence photos at my flustered husband. Upon seeing them, his face turned pale. What's this? What do you mean, what's this? You should know better than anyone. With that, my husband fell completely silent. Don't you have anything to say? Shut up! You're the one who's disgusting, sneaking around and even spying. That's probably why you're being cheated on. It's not my fault. It's your fault. I was utterly dumbfounded. Not only did my husband admit to cheating, but he also lashed out at me. Humph, keeping quiet means you admit you're in the wrong. The moment my husband said that with a triumphant face, why is Mom wrong? Dad's the one who's wrong, came from Aubrey. And then, I've heard everything, Chris. You're cheating on Karen, and then you say such things to her. Chris's parents came out from the next room. Dad? Mom? Why? I called them. It was my daughter who had suggested calling Chris's parents. Chris's parents live in a remote area of Kentucky, so it felt a bit awkward to call them all the way to New York, but we did it, saying, we're gonna beat the tar out of Daddy. It seems my daughter, Aubrey, is quite vengeful, just like me. For Chris, this was an unexpected development, and it seemed to be quite effective. You lie about being busy at work, you hurt Karen, you ignore even Aubrey, and you go off on trips with other women cheating on your wife. Then you get caught cheating, and you suddenly get defiant? What's with that attitude? Enough of your nonsense. Next to Chris's father, who was yelling at him, Chris's mother, Ruby, was crying. Since Chris's parents appeared, his face had turned pale beyond belief. Serves him right. Call your mistress here right now. But Chris was still frozen in his chair, unable to believe what was happening before his eyes. Unable to wait, I forcibly took Chris's smartphone and sent a message to Natalie, pretending to be him. Miami trip was fun. No one's at home now, wanna come over? I had to do it this way, otherwise, she might not come. While I was typing the message, Chris kept shouting at me to stop, but thanks to Chris's parents holding him back, it worked out well. After a while, the house intercom rang. "She's here, isn't she? Better go welcome her quickly. She thinks you called her after all." Chris, realizing he had no chance of winning, quietly headed towards the entrance. As the door opened, I could hear Natalie's cheerful voice, "I'm so glad you invited me over. It's gonna be our house soon. I wanted to have a look around." From the conversation, it seemed Chris planned to divorce me, kick me and Aubrey out, and live in this house with Natalie. How stupid can people be? They don't even realize they'll be the ones getting kicked out. Just imagining their desperate faces as they leave makes me want to burst out laughing. Then Chris returned to the living room with Natalie. Even Natalie, who had been in high spirits until now, suddenly looked puzzled as she sensed the heavy atmosphere in the living room. "Welcome, Natalie. Could you please sit over there?" Saying that, I made Natalie sit next to Chris. "I'm sorry for calling you so suddenly. Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Aubrey. And these two are Chris's parents. You understand why you were called here, don't you?" As I said that, Natalie's face quickly turned pale. She seemed to have finally understood the gravity of the situation. I didn't know that Chris had a wife. He told me he was single." But instead of apologizing, Natalie lied that she didn't know about me and tried to protect herself. Cheaters are just rotten to the core. Thinking that, I immediately corrected her. "You can't possibly not know, right? After all, we met when I delivered Chris's lunch the other day." With that, Natalie fell silent again. After a brief silence, Aubrey came in with the bags of Chris's belongings that we'd packed together, as if to say, "Now's the time." "What's that?" Chris said, seeing the large bag and the big suitcase. "It's clear, isn't it? These are all your belongings. You're gonna leave." "What are you talking about? This house is contracted under my name, so you can't possibly do that." "Oh? Really? You don't know, do you? While you were off enjoying your trip, I changed it to my name. Thanks for giving me a whole week to prepare." "That's outrageous. Aren't we family? How can you kick out your family like this? The person who's been ignoring me and Aubrey all along shouldn't talk about family, should you?" Saying that, I slapped down a divorce lawyer's business card in front of my husband's eyes. "Let's proceed with the divorce through our lawyers from now on." I forced my dejected husband to nod in agreement. My husband, with tears in his eyes, spoke to his in-laws. "Dad, Mom, please. I'll do anything, just let me stay with you until I find a place to live." But they replied, "We don't have room for a fool son like you. Don't ever associate with us again." "That's right. I don't want to think of you as my son. Don't ever show your face again." And with that, my husband was disowned by his family. The discussion is over. Matters like division of assets and child support will be handled through the lawyer from now on. If you understand, both of you leave now." With that said, the two of them got up and slowly headed towards the front door. On their way out, Natalie asked, "Aubrey, was it? Aubrey, why don't you come with us? I'm definitely better than your mom, you know?" I was dumbfounded by this. He had cheated without apologizing and seemed to be trying to win over my daughter in self-preservation. I thought about giving her a piece of my mind, but my middle school-aged daughter said, "There's no way a terrible person who cheats is better than my mom," and that must have shocked her, as she drooped her shoulders and went home. After that, we communicated through the lawyer. My husband begged many times to meet and apologize, but I steadfastly refused. I never want to see or hear him again. It seems that word of this incident spread to their company, and they were both fired right away. As for Natalie, it seems that by deliberately sending the notice for emotional distress compensation to her parents' home rather than her own, Natalie's parents have come to know the whole story. Apparently, she has been taken back to her family home and is now being watched over by her parents. Thanks to that, the two were forced to break up. I received a phone call from Natalie's parents apologizing deeply. My husband, having been disowned by his family and left without a place to go, his whereabouts are unknown to anyone. Well, I'm not interested, anyway. As for me, Mom. Ruby's here. Yes, just wait a minute. Several months have passed since the incident. After I kicked them out, Ruby had introduced me to a private investigator, so I went to report and thank her as well. Karen, you really did a great job. There might be more struggles ahead, but since we're neighbors, I'll support you in any way I can. She said so. Since then, Ruby has been coming to my house often, taking care of various things for us. Aubrey has grown quite fond of Ruby. Since the incident, my in-laws have been very good to us, sending over homegrown vegetables and Aubrey's favorite candies. Raising a child on my own has its challenges, but thanks to the support from Ruby, my ex-in-laws, and others around me, my daughter and I are living happily in our home as usual. Ruby, thank you for always looking after my daughter. It's fine. Aubrey is such a good girl, she's like my own granddaughter. So don't hesitate. What about you, Karen? How's that guy you've been talking about? What? Ruby, that's still a secret. I've made a fresh start. Maybe Aubrey will have a new dad in the near future.